Hello again, Peter Saturday from Universal Dork. I'm back again today. A little bit late this week putting out a video because this is actually probably going to be the last video where you're going to see me in this location of the store, Hollywood Babylon in Portland, Oregon. So we've been here for about 14 years, going on the 15th year actually in 2025. Started it way back in 2010, and this is the last few days that we're open here. We're looking to move the shop, so if you watch this channel and you want to come check us out in Portland, Oregon, look for the new location soon. All right, but enough about that. Let's talk about some movies. I think that I've got a pretty interesting one today that I saw for the first time probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I was doing the Netflix DVD red envelope by mail thing that they used to do. Now that was like a pretty big deal back in the day, and I rode that thing all the way out to the very end. And they were supposed to give me 10 of my DVDs. I think it was the first 10 DVDs that you had in your queue. They were supposed to just send them to you and let you keep them. I didn't receive any of them. I'm still a little mad about it, but I did keep the very last DVD that I was sent. I saw this film from 2004 called Highwaymen. Look at that. Does not look very impressive at all. This is a VHS copy of it, and like I said, this by the cover would never be something that I would probably ever rent on my own. So the way that I discovered this movie, which looks kind of stupid from the cover, as you can tell, the way I discovered it was I had just rewatched The Hitcher from 1986, which is one of the best horror films of all time, I think. Like, hands down, The Hitcher still to this day is pretty terrifying. It has just got amazing cinematography, the mood throughout it, the soundtrack, everything about that film is terrifying. One of the most terrifying openings that I've ever seen in a horror film. The Hitcher is so top-notch, and I've actually watched it pretty recently, I would say within the last year. Again, I probably watch this every couple of years, and it just never disappoints. It is that good. It was one that I saw in the 1980s when I was far too young, and it scared the shit out of me. That opening sequence made me never, ever want to pick up Hitchhiker. So the interesting thing about that film is that it was directed by this guy named Robert Harmon. And obviously, if you've seen The Hitcher, you can tell that he's an extremely talented filmmaker, though he's not really known for too many other films. After I had seen The Hitcher, I was very curious, thinking, what the hell else did this Robert Harmon guy do? Because I need to see more from him. This film right here, Highwaymen from 2004, is essentially a spiritual sequel to The Hitcher. So he kind of came back to the genre. It's very similar in a lot of ways. It does not have a hitchhiker, but it does take place on the road. It involves car chases and cars and a psychotic killer being pursued by this guy right here, Jim Caviezal. I think that's how you say his name. I think he's sort of like controversial now because he was in that movie Sound of Freedom, which I haven't seen. I don't really know too much about it. I know a lot of people were talking about it, or I don't know, maybe it was considered like right-wing or something because of its subject content. Or, I mean, from what I understand, I think that film is just like just a biopic of this FBI agent's life or something that did some big operation in the government to save some children. So I'm not really sure what the actual controversy about that is. I actually don't really care. I'll probably check that film out eventually and see what I think of it. But then also this guy here, he was actually Jesus in Passion of the Christ. So kind of controversial here, I don't know. There's some Jesus fans out there that love this guy and some really religious people that think he's really rad. I don't know, whatever. I've never seen Passion of the Christ either as well. I've been a little bit interested in seeing that over the years. I've heard it's incredibly brutal and violent, so I guess maybe Passion of the Christ could be almost considered like a horror film in a way. I don't know. Aside from that, this guy, I think he's always been a pretty solid actor. He actually is in a film that I rewatched again, too, from 2000 called Frequency with Dennis Quaid, which is a really super fun time travel film, really inventive plot. Mysterious, lots of strange twists and turns in that one. That one I highly recommend as well. So this one also stars this woman, Rhona Mitra. She is kind of considered to be a Kate Beckinsale sort of rip-off lookalike, but I actually think she's a pretty solid actress. But I mean, I will not lie here. When I've seen her in films before, I think she was in one of the Underworld films like Rise of the Lycans. I thought that was Kate Beckinsale. And she was in another film that I watched recently as well, from 2008, called Doomsday by Neil Marshall, who did like The Descent and Dog Soldiers. You know, I actually always thought that Doomsday was a really crappy film. And then I realized that I don't think I ever really gave it a chance. And I rewatched that. I found a Blu-ray of it for really cheap. And I rewatched Doomsday. And damn, I was pretty damn impressed. So, I mean, Neil Marshall was kind of onto something there. He had 3 solid films in a row with Dog Soldiers, The Descent, and then actually Doomsday, which is kind of a mix between like Escape from New York, 28 Days Later, Day of the Dead, and Mad Max. It's super cheesy, but it's totally action-packed, really fun. There's like sword play in it and like knights and weird shit like that. She actually stars in this film, and rewatching this again for the first time, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, so it was kind of a treat to see her in there as well. So that was really the only reason why I decided to check out Highwaymen, was because of Robert Harmon and how curious I was to see what he did. He also did another horror film from, I think, 2002 called They, which I did see back in the day, and now I'm a little bit more curious in checking that one up because I had no idea at the time that he actually directed it. So I'm going to give that a revisit too, because I really like this guy's style. He also did these films in the 2000s with Tom Selleck, these Jesse Stone movies that I've always seen like DVDs and stuff all over the place of those, and I've always thought they looked like total shit. But now, since I know that Robert Harmon is actually the director of them, maybe I'm fucking missing out on something, and those films are actually masterpieces. So let me know in the comments if you are a fan of the Jesse Stone, Tom Selleck series. I would like to know. I'd be willing to wager, though, that you're probably not. But one of my favorite things about The Hitcher has always been the atmosphere, the way it was filmed, just the general mood and feel of that film has been so effective. And the 2 leads, like Rutger Hauer and C. Thomas Howell, those guys are absolutely breathtaking in the roles in The Hitcher. One of the first things I noticed about this film when I watched it for the first time, I had no idea what to expect, but I could definitely tell that the tone was very similar to The Hitcher, the 1980s one, not the 2007 version, which I still haven't seen. So, you know, jury's out on that. I've actually heard recently that some people think it's really good. Some people that I actually trust their opinions on movies. And also, The Hitcher 2. This is nothing to do with The Hitcher 2. Robert Harmon did not do that movie. But C. Thomas Howell does come back in his original role in The Hitcher 2, where he goes back to that same damn highway where he met Rutger Hauer. And guess what he does again? This is the older version of him, same character. He goes and picks up a goddamn hitchhiker again. What are the odds of that? And this time, they went very second rate here. A step down quite a bit from Rutger Hauer, and he picks up Jake Busey for an incredibly idiotic tale of road terror. I mean, I guess things could have gotten worse, and he actually could have picked up Gary Busey instead. But I recommend watching that, because if you've ever wondered what happened to C. Thomas Howell's character after the events of The Hitcher, hey, this is it. This is what he did. It's on film. That's what happened. So as idiotic as that is, I actually really do recommend watching The Hitcher 2 because it is such a dramatic and idiotic step down from the original film, which is so great. But The Highwaymen has a very similar feel. You can actually tell that it is the same director of The Hitcher. It's got that same vibe. It's got that same look too. The cinematography is very similar to the way that The Hitcher is filmed. The tone is very similar. The characters in this film as well are pretty similar in tone. This all, I would assume, takes place in the same universe as The Hitcher. So that's one of the things that I immediately loved about The Highwaymen, was that it had that same sort of vibe, a little bit blue and kind of off-tone and dark and weird. Everything felt slightly dreamy, and The Highwaymen has that same vibe. One of the things about this film that connects it directly back to The Hitcher also is the music. Now, the music in this film has that same style going as The Hitcher, very tense, very moody, melancholy. It actually was done by the same person who did the soundtrack for The Hitcher, Mark Isham. That is another thing that probably gives this that same feel that it's taking place inside of the same universe as The Hitcher, which, in my opinion, this certainly is. So let me read to you the plot of The Highwaymen from the back of the VHS cover with my brand new glasses, which I promise will not fall off my head anymore. All right, here we go. In any game of cat and mouse, someone has to be the bait. Two driven men are locked in an escalating cycle of violence and revenge in this edgy thriller from the director of The Hitcher. Haunted by the hit-and-run death of his wife 5 years ago, Ronnie Cray, Jim Caviezal, has devoted his life to tracking down the killer, a twisted psychopath who randomly murders women using his souped-up 72 Eldorado. But the stakes are suddenly raised when a mysterious, tormented woman, Rhona Mitra, becomes caught in their deadly game of cat and mouse, leading to a shocking showdown neither one of them is willing to lose. There is a psychotic killer driving his crazy-looking car around, very similar to the car in Wheels of Terror, actually. This feels like it could have been driven by the killer in this movie, could be the same killer from the movie Wheels of Terror that I reviewed here from 1990. Got that same vibe. Really creepy-looking car, one burnt-out headlight. But the creepiest thing about this killer goes by the name of Fargo. And this guy is a total freak. He has been completely injured. His whole body has been kind of reformed by prosthetics. This guy essentially looks like a cyborg. He is a complete and utter psychotic maniac. Terrifying villain in this film because he is basically like kind of one with his car. Him and his car are kind of like one and the same. The way that they operate together, it's like he's a piece of that thing. And without it, well, you'll find out what he is without it later in the movie. And that's a pretty interesting aspect as well. But gotta love this killer. He probably, in the universe of The Hitcher, was probably good friends with Rutger Hauer's character. They probably hung out and drank beers together on the road. I would not be surprised of that. He randomly kills women for no reason, doing it driving across the United States on the highways, picking someone out at random, a woman, and then just running her over with his car, and then rolling off into the sunset like nothing happened. And some of these murders take place like thousands of miles away, so no one is quite really connecting them all together as well. And that's why we've got this guy, Jim Caviezel's, on the case here. He's chasing this guy down, looking for revenge, and that leads to some pretty high-intensity showdowns between the two of them. That's one of the best things about this film, what it's got going for it in the department of action. There are some really incredible action set pieces here. Obviously done on a lower budget, but all practical effects, car crashes, car chases, people getting run down by cars, murdered by this guy. And this guy's hot on the tail. He is just obsessed with catching this killer. And eventually he does meet Rhona Mitra here, who is in a similar predicament, having some of her close friends killed by this psychopath. Some of the action set pieces are utterly ridiculous. And that's one of the things I like about this film. It's one of those movies that is very well acted and taken very seriously, but the plot is utterly ludicrous. And I love films that take the ridiculous nature of their plots very seriously and put you in sort of this almost idiotic style adventure going on. I mean, you know, in all fairness, things in The Hitcher ended up getting a little bit idiotic and going way out of hand. You really had to have a suspension of disbelief for many parts of The Hitcher as well, and that's very similar to this. This would be the perfect movie to show with a double feature of The Hitcher, obviously having The Hitcher as the main attraction, and opening up the movie night with The Highwaymen, which is a nice, breezy, fast-paced run. So I'm sort of wondering if this movie was also maybe like edited down from a longer version, because it is just under 75 minutes long. So this is a very short film, which kind of works for it and against it at the same time. I mean, I love a short movie for like a movie night. With people with very short attention spans, this thing is perfect. But there is a part of me, I would say probably the biggest downfall is if they were to have added, you know, another 15 minutes to the plot and the runtime here, I think it could have done this a lot of good. Some of the things move along a little bit too quickly, but depending on what you're in the mood for, that could be a really great thing, or, you know, you might find it a tad flimsy. I think that a Blu-ray company needs to grab this film and you give this thing a whole different look, give it a brand new cover. Get rid of this stupid, I mean, this is terrible. Who puts their face this big on a damn cover of a movie? This is not going to sell any Blu-rays. So give this a cover very akin to like The Hitcher and slap that guy's name on it. You know, give it that tagline from the director of The Hitcher from 1986. So oddly enough, in the midst of editing this, I found out that a Blu-ray company Scream Factory actually did release this on Blu-ray, and they indeed gave it a better cover. And I believe they used the poster, the international poster of it. So I'm probably going to be grabbing a copy of that. So on Rotten Tomatoes, this thing has got a 13%. That is absolutely terrible. And I guess that kind of highlights the kind of stuff that I appreciate on this particular channel. Little oddities like this, I love the ludicrous nature of it, but I think that Robert Harmon does an excellent job here, returning to the genre, gives us another great installment of road terror. So don't listen to that Rotten Tomatoes stuff. If you like schlocky stuff, weird sort of B movies, and stuff that's like been completely basically forgotten and never talked about from the 2000s, there are some gems there, and The Highwaymen is definitely one of them. Oh, and also, if you think that the 2007 Hitcher is something that I really need to check out and give a chance, totally down for it, because I waited years to check out the Black Christmas remake, which is barely a remake. It's kind of its own thing. But Black Christmas from 2006, wow, mind blown. Love that film. It is now a Christmas tradition. All right, so that's all I've got to say for you. Next time I see you, I may be in a different location, or I may film one more video here with probably a barren background as the store is moving into storage, unless we find something within the next week, where then I can be showcasing you a brand new look at the shop as well before we get into covering some more weirdo movies. All right, so you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time in the near future.